level, that level 7 ahead. The other cores
2K net or 2K
the other core on his team Viper's level 10, but I guess that's
DC are sort of pressured to make the move right now.
And so Complexity's still with a commanding lead, 3K net worth ahead.
Bristle and Ember
2K net or 2K EXP ahead.
DC are sort of pressured to make the move right now.
Mason's still struggling to find that farm in the jungle. The kill definitely helps.
Bristle and Ember Spirit aren't heroes that like to be playing from behind.
Is Vanguard going to be enough for him to be aggressive, or is he looking to sit back and farm as much as he can to find that farm in the jungle? The kill definitely helps.
I think the Vanguard will help. It's one of the most cost-effective HP items in the early game, and I think
to be aggressive, or is he looking to sit back and farm as much as he can for the next 5 minutes or so?
They don't want to continue the game at its current pace.
I think the Vanguard will help. It's one of the most cost-effective HP items in the early game, and I think
spot op-ed, the blood right not gonna hit.
DC
up his op-ed. You've got.
They don't want to continue the game at its current pace because Complexity's just going to slowly outfarm them.
There's the Fade Bolt. They're looking for more. They're gonna start to push op-ed back. Right not gonna hit. Flame Guard from Kyle. You've got Sleight of Fist with the Remnant out to coming over with a couple of Z-free creeps, and there's the Fade Bolt. They're looking for more. They're gonna start to push op-ed back. They'll open up the Flame Guard from Kyle.
When their openings
now Sleight of Fist with the
Remnant
out
DC is sort of playing passively right now, but that's just the nature of. I think DC is one of the best teams at recognizing where and when their openings are.
Out here and
You'll notice that DC is sort of playing passively right now, but that's just the nature of
easy for them to clean them up.
How their lineup plays against the Complexity lineup. And
with the Thunder Strike, boy, Kyle might be spotted out here and dead for sure. It seems Moon Meander here with MSS.
Level 6 now, and I think
easy for them to clean them
the
up.
spell they needed.
And it will be dual breath. With the Thunder Strike,
moves, and
we'll get the kill on this
I think we'll start seeing DC actively
Moon Meander,
he
consumed the Tome Knowledge, so he's level 6 now, and I think
this is the spell they needed. At the moment, I think the Viper's just way
start
too
going for
bigger
moves,
sitting with Power Treads. I think we'll start seeing DC actively looking for kills with this Disrupt royalty, especially on heroes like the Puck and Bloodseeker. At the moment, I think the Viper's just way too difficult to kill, sitting with Power Treads and Helm of the Dominator.
It'll just be the Macro Pyre laid on top of this creep wave, but does that really do enough to deter them? To see how DC start to react to this complexity.
I mean, it really
push,
doesn't,
even
especially
if they
with
do it all.
Helm of Dominator creep
it will
available
just be the
to
Macro
the tower.
Pyre laid on top of this creep wave, but does that really do enough to deter them?
As possible, they're farming up top and bottom with. I mean, it really doesn't, especially with Helm of Dominator creep available to tank the tower. The tier 1 will surely fall, but DC are just trying to get as much over the map as possible. They're farming up top and bottom because Viper with their heroes so far ahead. So I don't think. I think DC will continue with sort of DC will want to go for a fight when Complexity are grouped up just because they're so far behind on net worth and because that Viper openings. Because the only way they get themselves back into this game, or rather the only way they get their cores in a position to win this game, split the map, get as much farm as possible, and then they're not going to constantly look for win this game by just the only way they get themselves back into this game, or they're smoking 2 of their heroes. Rather, the only way they get their cores in a position to win this game is if they go for kills at some point. They're not going to be able to win this game by just farming, and I think they know that. So they're smoking 2 of their heroes up top with Bulba sort of being the bait.
Freak is nearby. They might get the glimpse into a nice ice path, but there's the Dream Coil with those mud golems. Actually, quick kill on Bulba in this smoke. Just a little bit too slow. Chen, is it even worth it? Freak is nearby. They might get the glimpse into a nice ice path, but
it's not quite worth it committed, and now actually 4
for just a kill on this Chen. Is it even worth it with a huge rotation?
Behind, and the Chen slightly ahead of the Night Stalker. They will also be able to put some damage on this tower. It's not quite worth it with the rotation, but if you consider just the 1-for-1 kill, it's probably fine for them since they're quite behind and the Chen slightly ahead of the Night Stalker. They will also be able to put some damage on this tower.
Maybe to look for that initiation stun onto these. So they start to push this tower out with Mason. Looks to be exactly what they're lining up as they get the lift onto the Bristleback, but it's Mason and Abed here. Kyle in a lot of trouble with the Static Storm, dropped on top a couple of these heroes. He's going to go down with the pullback of Moo. What they're lining up as they get the lift onto the Bristleback, but it's Mason and Abed here. Kyle in a lot of trouble with the Static Storm, dropped on top a couple of these heroes. He's going to go down away, but the Bristles do all the work, and Mason's got a double kill. He's looking for more. Bulba continuing to chase with that silence. Now the Void for more. The Shockwave hits. The rest of these heroes start to hit away, but the Bristles do all the work, and Mason's got a double kill. Still trying to get out of here. More Limp. Bulba continuing to chase with that silence. Now the Void Limp push back. They might get quite low, and he's in a pretty bad spot going up against Mason, and Bulba will clean up Jakiro. Maybe trying to deny himself the neutral creeps, but Z-Freak takes care of him, and now they might get more in MSS.
Look like
got 3 heroes here, and Chessie on a killing spree will clean up Jakiro, and 3 fall on the side of DC.
Moo was just way too tanky. 2 nulls. That was quite a good exchange for complexity there. It looked like it was going good for DC. They caught out the Rubik, and then DC's resources that fight a little bit too thin. You know, they expended their. Moo was just way too tanky. 2 nulls. Talisman had 17 wand charges in a range drop. Was able to survive, and as a result, sort of just stretched. Weren't really threatened that fight. DC's resources that fight a little bit too thin. You know, they expended their ultimates, didn't really get much, and so the Viper and the Bloodseeker really weren't in a. I guess their situation hasn't really changed. Weren't really threatened that fight, and so complexity, they come out on top.
Down about 5,000 net worth.
DC, they're sort of
looked as
back
though they might do well in that little exchange that happened.
I guess their situation hasn't really changed.
I mean, the net worth is starting to really extending complexity's
down
favor.
About 5,000 net worth.
Yeah.
DC looked as though they might do well in that little exchange that happened over top. But what do they do here?
Just high ground, and obviously DC are gonna
really extending
play around
complexity's
sure
favor.
That complexity can't group up. I think DC are just hoping that complexity never really get enough to make complexity to just high ground, and obviously DC are gonna, so you know, sort of play around and make sure that complexity can't group up. Sort of help complexity never really get enough pickoffs to make complexity feel comfortable enough to go for Roshan or go for a tier 3. So he's the only hero on his team that can safely push out waves pick up travels to sort of help with the split pushing effort. Sort of help him scale into the late game, especially when he's the only hero on his team that can help.
Working on that.
He's the only hero on his team that can safely push out waves in the mid to late game.
He's working towards that Manta style, a bit of ways away from that. So Chessie just continuing to farm away. He's got that Sacred Relic working on that. Those next couple of items for complexity seem that he's working towards quite a bit as you take a look over bottom. Away from that, then you take a look chasing into this Bloodseeker. The Void comes out. It's just a Jakiro, just a Night Stalker, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Now with the Disruptor here and the Dual Breath hitting again, it's another kill for the side of DC as they're chasing into this Bloodseeker. The Void comes out. It's just a Jakiro, just a Night Stalker, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Now with the Disruptor here and the Dual Breath hitting again, it's another kill for the side of DC as they clean up the Waning Rift. Moon Meander looking like he's going to be the one who drops, and that'll be
a huge kill that MSS really needed on Jakiro since he was behind.
So he gets one in return. Now 10 in favor of complexity.
Overall, a good exchange for DC, however, and Mason's got enough gold for a Solar Crest if he chooses to buy that, and that should help him a lot against the Viper, since Viper's not going to have an MKB for a really long time, nor is the Bloodseeker ever really going to want to buy an MKB, so that should make Mason a lot tankier in these fights, which might give DC the edge coming into the next team fight when DC chooses to take it.
So DC grabbed that tier 1 top, Searing Chains, and there's the Remnant away from Op-Ed, not even going to think about fighting Limp 1v1.
And Z-Freak has a Midas, is about 1.3k gold away from an Aghanim Scepter, and that might be the timing that Complexity are going to look for when it comes to sort of pushing into this DC lineup. You'll see Limp doesn't even have a Maelstrom queued up, which is usually an item that Vipers go for when they plan on taking it to the late game, or just plan on having a game where the Viper farms a lot, because that Maelstrom really changes the way Viper operates as a hero, because instead of sitting in lane all the time, you actually have the option of clearing the lanes out quickly and going to the jungle. Instead, Limp opts for a Manta, more of a teamfight oriented item.
You know, these item timings, like I said, from Complexity, just seem like they're going to line up at the right times. Blink Dagger on the Puck. Ag's going to come out soon for this Chen. Radiance on the Bloodseeker. And Manta on the Viper. It seems like a huge boost in power for the side of Complexity that I'm not too sure DC are going to be able to handle. They're looking for the Radiance in return on Op-Ed, but I don't know if he's going to be able to get it. Meanwhile, Kyle goes in as well as Moo, and Op-Ed's going to be okay. No worse for the wear.
I think Avid's plan right now is just to continue to split push, keep the lanes up, make sure Complexity feel like they're never in a safe position to go for ganks or go for objectives. But you know, this won't last for too long. I feel like if DC don't make a move in the next 2 minutes, then Complexity are going to hit their item timings, and DC might be in a lot of trouble. So I'll have to see if they do anything with this nighttime, especially now that Darkness is activated on Night Stalker.
So Mason continuing to push up top, has himself that medallion and the Vanguard with quite a bit of cash saved up for him now with that Boots of Travel. But Chessie, he's picked up this Radiance, and he'll be able to start to clean up these creep waves pretty quickly. So the push that DC's hoping for might not still be there, and the Veil going to be thrown on the Op-Ed. You've got Limp nearby. There's the Waning Rift. Maybe look for that Dream Coil to come out, but the Sleight of Fist Searing Chains Remnant away is enough to get him to his escape.
You can sort of see the lack of lockdown on Complexity kicking in there. I mean, that it was sort of a hard gank just because it was 2 heroes, but you know, if they had another hero like a Spirit Breaker, Earth Spirit, or Earth Shaker, then that certainly would have been an easy kill with an additional stun. But unfortunately for Complexity, Abed gets away, and he actually might just break their smoke here.
Take a look as the smoke is broken. They get the Dream Coil to fly on the Op-Ed to kill him off. Actually looked up top for a split second and missed that. He gets dropped by 4 heroes on Complexity, and with no Ember Spirit on the board, they're going to look towards taking the first Roche of the game.
Yeah, and with this Roche, you know, the game is certainly in Complexity's hands. They'll be able to either get a tier 3 or at least eliminate all of DC's tier 2s from the map. So should put Complexity in a winning position. Mason opted for Boots of Travels, which is not exactly a teamfight item, so you know, you can consider that Bristleback sort of 2k net worth behind for the next couple of fights with an item that doesn't exactly help him repel the push coming from Complexity. So I think, if anything, the Travels is going to help his team split push, but you know, it's hard to say how much split pushing will do, since Complexity will probably look to reset and start grouping up soon.
So Op-Ed nearby with this Invis rune. You gotta think that you see yourself burning down with this little bit of damage, but now he comes out Searing Chains and he'll go all the way out.
Yeah. You can see DC's not even bothering to group up right now. They're just trying to get as much out of the map as possible before this Complexity lineup decides to group up. Instead of going in Radiance, Abed seems to have switched his quick buy to a Maelstrom, which should help him a little bit more in the next few engagements. Help him earlier, rather.
Take a look over mid as the Searing Chains come out on Limp, walking away as Op-Ed. He's actually just going to TP out.
Top lane.
Luckily enough for him, there was nobody else there. You take a look up top, Moo's going to have himself a 3-man Dream Coil. Let's see if he can get himself out of this one. There's the phase shift, and Mason, MSS, and Bulba just slap him down and get themselves an easy kill.
Certainly a really good kill from DC, and again, the timing coming out, you know, they wait for Moo to expend his orb, and then they go right in while that spell's on cooldown, and they manage to net themselves a pretty important kill. But you know, Complexity still almost 7k net worth ahead, almost 6k net worth, or almost 6k EXP ahead. So definitely
take a look over top. They're trying to go in on a couple of these heroes. They seem to have spotted Moomiander. He's already taken out of this game. And they look towards maybe getting Mason, but this is remnants from Kyle being used, and Mason will be able to TP out. Quick kill there onto the Disruptor.
And so far, DC's been doing a really good job of pulling Complexity all over the map. I mean, they do get a Disruptor kill, but you know, the Disruptor's almost back up, and that was like 2 or 3 heroes rotating top. And actually, Swollen Melons might go down up here.
Take a look. Kyle getting into a little bit of trouble. Uses the Telekinesis to try and get away from Op-Ed, but the burn here from the Flame Guard as well as the Searing Chains. He's not going to be able to handle all that burn damage coming out here from Op-Ed, and this Ember Spirit will end up getting the kill, but that comes at the cost of losing your tier 2 over mid.
And so there's two, before this push, there's 2 big item timings coming out from DC right now. They almost have a VKB on Mason.
Thrown onto Chessie as well as the Ice Path. But it doesn't seem like they have anything to really follow it up. Complexity just looking to slow siege this. They have the Ags out on the Chen. And in fact, they actually decide to just retreat off that mid lane push.
And DC doing a really good job of counter pushing, and you know, this Aegis might actually run out before they're able to do anything with it. They do get 2 tier 2s, however, so not the worst usage of Aegises. DC are just doing a really good job of preventing Complexity from being in a position to push, and you know, this Bristleback's starting to work on a BKB, which should help him immensely in these fights, especially since a lot of Complexity's damage comes from magic, and Abed's also got a Radiance back in the queue. He should have that before the next fight, seeing as how DC have been on this trend of avoiding fights in the last 10 minutes.
So right now, top of the net worth is the Viper of Limp, and then followed up by Chessie on this Bloodseeker. He just bought out and got himself that full BKB, so now here with the Radiance and BKB, doesn't look like they're going to use this Aegis to really look for a high ground push, but like you said, they took out 2 towers. Is that enough of a push to really think that you're going to maintain this lead over DC, or is this an opening now?
Well, I think Complexity, realistically, it's difficult for them to push with the Aegis, and I think the Aegis is gonna run out soon, so if Complexity don't do anything with this first Aegis, then they'll have to wait for the second Aegis before being able to actually high ground safely, assuming that all of the heroes on DC are alive.
So, Mason actually TP's very close to this Complexity side. I was actually thinking that was not the right move, but the Static Storm is laid on top of 2 of these heroes. They've got Moo going in deep with a nice Dream Coil placed onto 2 of these heroes. They've taken out Mason, and there's the Aegis gone, but let's see if that deters them from continuing to go in. Moo getting quite low with the Ice Path and the Macro Pyro laid on top of him. They're going to take him out. The buyback is there from Mason, and now they've lost Bulba. You've got the glimpse back of Chessie getting quite low with the Ice Path and the Dual Breath just burning him away. And he might be in a little bit of trouble and will end up dropping a Moo Meander. So they've taken out 2. They force the buyback of Mason. Limp hits away at Moo Meander, who's in a lot of trouble. But overall, they do hold this tier 3 for now. And the engagement isn't really over. Kyle's going to get hit by that Rod of Atos. Ice Path not going to hit. And now the Ice Path stolen and thrown right back at him.
Overall, you know, DC, they get to defend their racks, but it does cost them a buyback on Mason, and definitely seems like an over-aggressive TP from Mason, but they do survive, they keep their racks. Although their tier 3 is quite low, it does buy DC some time to sort of enter the late game now, especially with that Radiance getting quite close for the Ember Spirit, and this should buy enough time for Mason to finish his BKB before the next fight.
But now Mason, he's got no buyback for quite some time. If they were to force a push on Complexity, that could spell a lot of trouble for DC.
It could, but you know, I think the DC lineup are going to continue to split push and get these lanes out. And Complexity Complexity only have 1 hero that can sort of, or I guess 2 heroes that can sort of respond to the split push safely, the Viper and the Puck. You know, the Puck just blasts waves safely, has a blink, has phase shift, and the Viper just is able to push lanes because he's so far ahead of the enemy team. But you know, I suppose that DC can't exactly pressure Complexity to push back or to TP back, especially since the only hero that's missing off of the map is the Ember Spirit right now.
He's pulled himself all the way back to base. Oped now with this Radiance. And Blink picked up here for Kyle. So we'll have to see how he does with that Rubik now having the Blink Dagger. He's stolen a couple of pretty important spells so far. The Ice Path didn't hit over bottom, but I'm pretty sure he had landed a couple earlier in that fight, which really extended the fight between these 2 teams. Ice Path comes through onto Limp. He might be in a little bit of trouble, forced to use that Manta style. And now they're looking to re-engage slowly but surely on the side of Complexity. Again, you see that Ice Path get thrown forward by Kyle, and if it locks somebody up on DC, we could see Complexity really look to jump in.
And I think this time DC are going to position themselves a lot better. I mean, I suppose Mason probably knows that he shouldn't be in the middle of 5 heroes this time. And DC are just going to slowly try to defend their tower one wave at a time.
We're finally gonna spot.
Definitely feels like it feels like Complexity are wasting a lot more time being here unless they get this tier 3. So I think they'll keep trying.
Ice Path as well as the Searing Chains are going to hit on Chessie. Ice Path thrown right back. There it is. Finally the tier 3 taken by Limp. And DC, they might in fact look to chase. It looked as though they were going to give it a first thought, and the second thought there was to not go in. But as I say that, they pull back Limp. They get the glimpse into the kinetic field. Coming through is going to be Moo. He's got the Dream Coil coming through onto Disruptor. And that seemingly is it. Both these teams not fully committing to the fight.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that Bulba or Abed did pick up a Z-Frix gem, so there's a gem and an Aghanim Scepter and a Night Stalker, which should give some vision advantage to DC. The only thing is DC have to be in a position to deward, and now that they've sort of pushed Complexity off of their tier 3, or I guess the tier 3 fell, it should give some time for Bulba to do some dewarding. Whether or not it'll be enough is a different question, but definitely, I think in order for DC, what DC are probably thinking right now is we need to win that next team fight, right? Because if we lose one more team fight, we're pretty much gonna get Raxed, maybe even 2 Raxes.
It seems like this 12,000 net worth deficit is hard to overcome. For the side of DC, they are holding pretty well, but of course they lost that tier 3 tower, but it did take Complexity 2 attempts to go in and get that.
Yeah, DC's anti-push isn't quite strong enough to deter this Bloodseeker and Viper from hitting the tower, and so if Complexity get this next Roche, that'll put them in a really good position, and if DC don't realize it's happening, then, you know, DC will never be able to set up, especially now that Complexity has placed some pretty good wards around the Roche pit.
So they will work on this Roche, take it out very quickly. Aegis back on Chessie, this time Cheese onto Limp. Meanwhile, they'll get the kill on the Disruptor. Moomiander just found completely out of place.
Abbott's continuing to split push top, but I don't think it'll be enough. You know, Ember Spirit as a hero, he can kill the waves quite easily, but he can't exactly threaten these buildings the same way that, say, an Anti-Mage or a Lone Druid can, so Complexity feel no obligation to go back. They're gonna push.
Yeah, they're gonna come in over bottom. You see the Macro Pyre laid down. Kyle will be the first one to drop. Then they're gonna take out MSS. He'll immediately buy back into this game. It's Limp who's now dominating. Sleight of Fist, Searing Chains, and there's the man to purge it off. You take a look as Chessie just trying to find an opening with this Aegis. They've used the BKB on Mason. Now turning around is going to be Chessie. You've got Moo on the backline, silencing up this Jakiro, and there's the Aegis popped. You've got 5 alive for DC, and 4 alive for Complexity as Chessie now pops his BKB and the Blade Mail attacking out Bull, but he's going to drop that gem. Now Moomiander, who's already bought back, is dead. Op-Ed the next one to drop, and Complexity take out 3. They'll look towards Jakiro, get another one, and he had just bought back as well, so he's dead for over a minute, no buyback. Op-Ed and Mason, the only 2 heroes alive here for the side of DC to really defend this bottom set of racks, and Mason getting hit up quite hard by the side of Complexity and will drop. Op-Ed, he's in the eyes of Complexity next, and with that, it's a full team wipe for Complexity as well as Game 1.
Perhaps the biggest thing going for Complexity was just that last pick Viper. It forced DC into like a weird laning scenario where it was off lane, and Mason on Bristleback was in the middle end. So really, the Ember Spirit and the Bristleback were never in the positions they wanted to be in to fight, because ideally in a Bristleback and Ember Spirit lineup at level 7 and beyond, you know, you're constantly taking fights, so you're actually able to take them. But instead, Complexity, it feels like they had a little bit of an outdraft against DC, and also, you know, they just played the early game a lot better and just rode that lead all the way until the end.
Yeah, ride that lead they did with 6-0 on Limp. Chessie 5-2. Everybody having double-digit assists, so always involved was this side of Complexity. Meanwhile, DC falling behind early was the death of them as Complexity continued to push and use that early advantage they did to take this Game 1 of this best-of-3 final. Game 2 will be coming up next. Complexity versus Digital Chaos. I'm your caster, BCop, at BCop92. I am joined here by Franz, at HelloFranz on Twitter. Let us know how we're doing. And we'll be back with Game 2 in just a moment. Stay right there.
Let the glove flow on, baby. Let the glove be free. I reach for you, honey. You reach for me.